With me now from Washington is former Hillary Clinton spokesperson Moe Elleithee. Moe is also executive director of Georgetown University's Institute of Politics and Public Service. Moe, Donald Trump has said many controversial things, and yet he still secured the Republican nomination for president. Is there any line in your mind that is too far?
I mean, Elaine, this is so sad. This whole episode is so sad to watch. The fact that we are sitting here watching a public spat between a presidential candidate and a Gold Star family, I never thought our politics would actually come to this. And I think you're right. He has said repeated things throughout the course of this campaign, attacking POWs, now attacking Gold Star families. You'd think that, you know, it's a surprise to see him this far. But I do think when he was speaking in the Republican primaries, he was speaking to a different group of people than what a general election electorate looks like. And there are a lot of people now who are tuning in really for the first time. This is their introduction. This is happening on the heels of his convention, which is typically the big introduction to the entire country. I don't think he's putting his best foot forward right now.
You referenced the comments Donald Trump made specifically about Senator John McCain, basically saying that he was a war hero because he was captured and that he prefers people who weren't captured. A lot of people, Moe, thought that that would be the end of his campaign, but it wasn't. As you noted, a general is different than a primary. Yeah. However, is there anything to suggest, anything that you've seen, anything to suggest that these comments might be any different?
I mean, we'll see how this plays out. I do think, as surprising and unfortunate and remarkable as his comments were about John McCain, who, as a lifelong Democrat, I've differed with quite a bit, but I've always respected him for his service. This was still a spat between two politicians, between him and John McCain. This is different. He is taking on the mother of a fallen soldier, the father of a fallen soldier, mocking them. George W. Bush had his fair share of protesters, of parents of fallen soldiers who protested him, who said some pretty tough things about him. But he always treated them with respect. He always talked about their pain and their suffering and then made his own case. But he always treated them with respect. We've never seen anything like this, where the parents of a fallen soldier are the subject of attacks by a presidential candidate. I think this could do something.
Mr. Khan has said House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have an ethical obligation to speak out against their nominee. What position, Moe, do you think these comments put party leaders in?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's got to be very, very tough. Speaker Ryan has made it clear throughout the course of this campaign he's not the biggest fan of Donald Trump, but he's trying to hold his party caucus together. He knows that walking away would destroy it could split his party. But I do think that there's a compelling argument to be made on the other side that by embracing Donald Trump and allowing him to continue making comments like this, that could actually have a longer term more devastating impact on the party. If he becomes the face of the Republican Party for the long term, that could have an even more lasting impact. His running mate, Mike Pence, is having a tough time as well. He's out there trying to say things that keep getting overshadowed and finding himself directly at odds. Yesterday, when asked about this brouhaha with Mr. Khan, his response was to refer all reporter questions back to the Trump campaign. I've never seen anything like that, where a running mate himself was saying, I'm not going to even touch this, go call the campaign.
We should note that Speaker Ryan's office was asked about this, and here's what a spokesperson said. The speaker has made clear many times that he rejects this idea and himself has talked about how Muslim Americans have made the ultimate sacrifice for this country. So just for the record. In the meantime, I want to ask you, Mrs. Khan wrote an op-ed about Donald Trump criticizing her silence, saying Donald Trump has children whom he loves. Does he really need to wonder why I did not speak? How do you think, Moe, other mothers of fallen soldiers might respond when they see this by someone who is looking to become the next commander-in-chief?
No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine the grief that she's going through. And when he went out there and said and sort of mocked her for not speaking out, I think he just invited more and more trouble, because he hasn't sacrificed anything. Like none of us who. The only people who can empathize are people who've been there. The only people who can truly understand the sacrifice are the people who've been there. And so I think there are a lot of mothers out there who saw this back and forth, and I think are going to side with her. He ended up looking a little callous. He ended up looking incredibly tone deaf and disrespectful. And I think this could be a turning point. Though there have been a number, as you pointed out, a number of times that looked like turning points that didn't end up being so.
We'll continue to watch it. In the meantime, I want to ask you about Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine embarking on their battleground bus tour on Saturday. How would you say that's going? What's the reception been like?
Look, I think it's still early, and I think this is just the introduction to the ticket. So far, they've been met with warm crowds, but you'd expect that they would be. But this is an important period of time, and when you juxtapose it with what Donald Trump's been up to, you look at the conventions are now over. This is when, historically, both tickets go out and begin to aggressively define themselves and introduce themselves to the broader population. Donald Trump is doing this. Donald Trump is having a fight with the Gold Star family. That frees up Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine to go out there. They're in the heartland. They're standing there together, and they're saying hello. They're making an introduction, and they're beginning to lay out the contrast. Trump is losing valuable time here with this sideshow, while the Clinton campaign is able, I think, to begin to make a connection with some voters in some important states.
At the same time, though, Mo, as you well are aware of, Donald Trump has connected with Americans, particularly white working class voters who do believe in him and believe, for instance, he's the best person who could lead when it comes to the economy. How do you think Tim Kaine can help Hillary Clinton in battleground states and try and get that connection established between Hillary Clinton and that particular population?
And in full disclosure, you mentioned I used to work for Hillary Clinton. I also have worked for Tim Kaine in the past, too. Look, Tim Kaine's a guy who I think has a story, compelling enough story, that can really speak to these people. He grew up in the Midwest. He grew up in a middle-class home. His father was a small business owner who ran an iron working shop, and Tim Kaine grew up working on the floor of that shop, learning carpentry, learning welding, things that he took with him when he went down to Honduras years later as a missionary, and he taught that to poor kids. He's a guy that sort of gets these values, very rooted in his faith. And so having him out there with Hillary Clinton, who has struggled with these voters, has struggled making a connection with these voters, Tim Kaine could be an entree, because I think a lot of voters can wrap their heads around his experience. He certainly understands theirs, and he might be able to be the entree that she needs to be able to get more of a connection with these voters.
All right, Moe Elleithee in Washington for us. Mo, thanks so much.
Thank you.